Hi, my name is Margie Nelson, and I'm going to talk to you today about video violence, which is my persuasive speech. My topic is video games and violence. The question is, does violent video games contribute to youth violence? In a statement from procon.org states that 97% of 12 to 17-year-olds in the U.S. played videos in 2008, fueling an 11.7 billion domestic video games industry, which 10 of the best-selling video games in the U.S. contain violence. Violent video games have been blamed for school shootings, increased in bullying, and violence towards women. Critics have argued that these games desensitize players to violence, reward players for stimulating violence, and teach children that violence is an acceptable way to resolve conflicts. I have just three questions to ask. How many of you in the class believe that violence and video games send the wrong message to our kids? Do you think violent video games influence aggressive behavior in our kids today? And what are some ways we can avoid this type of behavior? It has been argued that violent video games are linked to bullying and may also have contributed to the shooting at Sandy Hook School. Violence and aggressive behavior against women and children. Fantasy violence can be attributed to confused violence for real life violence. My goal today is to persuade you that video game violence can cause aggressive behavior in our young kids. Facts really haven't been proven that video games causes violent behavior in young kids and teens. So as I go through and research the evidence, I hope to have clarity about violent video games and their effects on our on our youth and kids today. Now, as I research through different types of websites and news articles, I found that there was a debate on the shooting massacre at Newtown, Connecticut, December the 14th, over whether violent video games contributed to the shooting. It sparked Senator Joe Lieberman to raise the issue on assault weapons. It was stated by the senator that violence in the entertainment culture, particularly extraordinary realism to video games and movies, now does cause vulnerable young men to be violent. It was also stated that ABC News had not confirmed that Adam Lanza played violent video games, but gaming was part of the debate in the shootings. The associate psychological science, which I called and spoke with Anna McCulloch, who was assistant director of public affairs, and she emailed me some material on articles related to video games, media, and violence that have been published in APA Journal. The article was released on March 11, 2013. Topic name is frustration may increase attraction to violent video games, which was tagged as aggression, emotion. The article stated the temptation to steal or cheat is sometimes great, especially when the risk of being caught is low. The study suggests that denying people the opportunity to engage in these taboo behavior may lead them to seek out violent video games as a way of managing their frustration. The study was led by researcher Brad Bushman of the Ohio State University. Bushman and his colleagues wanted to know what would attract people to violent media. In the study, they found that people who believe violent games are cathartic, offering emotional release, are more attracted to violent video games when they are angry. The research, after given to the students several different times and ways, showed that according to Bushman, frustration didn't affect the attraction to nonviolent games. It helped them to understand why people want to play violent video games. According to Bushman, these findings are especially important in light of the evidence that playing violent video games can lead to increased angry feeling and aggressive behavior. While people may turn to violent video games as a way to manage their feelings of frustration, the video games may actually enhance negative emotion. Are violent video games good for our kids to play? We watch and listen to violence on a daily basis, whether TV entertainment or the daily news media. Violent game players and manufacturers have taken it to the Supreme Court about their rights, legal amendment rights. Vice President Joe Biden had a meeting in January with video game industry executives, a response to Sandy Hook's school shooting. The maker of violent video games marshaled support to feud off regulation with the Newtown, Connecticut massacre, spurring concern over violent video games. And makers of popular games like Call of Duty and Mortal Kombat are rallying congressional support to try to fend off their biggest regulatory threats. In 2 decades, which was stated, the $60 billion industry is facing intense political pressure from alliance. There was no link between Adam Lanza and violent video games in the gunman rampage. There was also a statement that Obama administration central focus on response to the shooting, while violent media culture is being scrutinized alongside mental health laws policy. Can I get your opinion on if you feel that the crime rate of gun violence in our youth and kids are connected or associated with violence in the rated video games that require parental advisory? Do you believe that violent video games cause aggressive behavior? Can this behavior lead to violence? Should we be concerned about video game violence, the effect it might have on our kids? Those are just some of the questions that I had for the class. Thank you.